Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer 1745 here with my continued playthrough of Hearts of Iron 4 with the Man the Guns DLC, just the basic game here. And one thing I wanted to do here, scroll up. There's a lot of these that started getting a bit over full. Where was it? Yes, I wanted to try to request Azor's lease. So that would, don't know what the McDonald proposal is. Did Ireland exist? No, we're not going after Ireland. We're going to see if we can get the Azores. Portugal accepts. This will be useful. Okay, so we now own the Azores. And let's put an air base and some radar. That will help us. And we'll do that. Let's push this down. We'll let the Gilbert Islands and others go first. That will be helpful. And we are well, there's quite a bit of Italian forces that just pushed the Americans out of here before. They had up to 9 divisions. So not sure how this is going to go, but if they get ashore here, then I'm going after Anzio to push towards Rome. And I've got both an invasion force and a follow-along force ready to go. Pretty big. Talia Balboa is still alive? Talo? He died. Was 1940, I think? Maybe even 39? More U.S. forces coming for this. Yeah, no, I want to go for Anzio to push to Rome rapidly without a river in the way. We can take their capital before they can react, but I want to make sure they get ashore first. Sort of kind of looks like they should, because these look like they're about ready to collapse. And these guys are out here battling some subs. Okay, they're ashore, so let's pause this. Logistical bombing, very good. well. Yeah, let's get these so we can do the mechanized forces. And, no. Army. Go. They're ashore now. These guys, see, they have a battle plan to come here, but they're not moving. This is, invasion AI seems to be pretty smart. I should be having some damn escorts, I thought. Oh, maybe you need to be that area too. No. Come on, get over here. You should be escorting my invasion fleet. I messed that up. Uh-oh, I may need to go back to Pazza. I need to now let's close this, get rid of that, get thing in the way. There we go. Don't worry about there. Come over here and save my fleet from sinking. We've got air power. They've got some subs. Well, we've got some American escorts. Very good. Thank you, America. Hello, Sir Organ. Or, no, Sir Logan. Sorry. Sir Logan. I wasn't reading that well. They have a new black ice for test out. Oh, good to hear. I hadn't heard that they gotten that far on black ice. We will be looking at that soon then. Not today, but sometimes, you know, people talk about the Japanese massacring all over China, the Dutch East Indies. It's almost always the Germans that get the attention. Okay, well, the people do talk about it. So I would disagree with that, but Germany does get the bigger attention. That is true. I won't argue that point. But Nanjing is well known. There's books written on it. Sorry, just moving in my chair here. Okay, guys. You come to this port. There we go. Okay, fall of Rome. So we've grabbed Rome. Oh, damn it. No, you stay there. I keep forgetting to come here and delete this. Yes, delete all battle orders. I want to control this. Oh, did we leave this? No, it's still coming in. We got the Americans. Cut Italy in two. German Cavalry Division. Hello, Azads. Good to see you. No, I hadn't heard about the anti-sat missile test. Okay, so now we've cut Italy in two. We are moving in big armies. Okay, guys. Port that back there. Join that attack. We did it in low orbit, so it didn't fall down. There we go. Push to places. Yeah, Brexit is a mess. I don't think anybody would think otherwise. Whether you're for it or against it, it's a mess right now. Okay, so we've got that. Where are more? I have a bunch of forces down here, I know. These are a bunch of the... Oh, no, no, you don't want to do that. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. Cancel that. Okay. What we need to do here is come to here and access allowed. So now you'll come this way into this and help clear up the Americans' bad AI mess. Ah, Java, yeah. Is there anything happening out here? I know they were pushing here. That's right. Thank you. Thank you for reminding me, because actually I had forgotten that there was a landing there. Okay, we can now produce more stuff. What do we need? First question. We could use more support equipment. So, what should we produce? More support equipment. We'll also need to maybe do some more aluminum. What else do we need? Well, we do some infantry equipment. Anti-tank. Yeah, I haven't read it. I don't plan on reading it. The terrorist stuff. Well, AZ, he's a nut job. Yeah, I understand about reading it, and people do need to understand, but I don't know how much value somebody's going to get, say, out of the old Unabombers' weird manifestos and things. So, I'm not saying people shouldn't read it. I think... Let's see, let's get this division and this division. And we're going to send these down to Java as well to join the forces down there. Quit India movement. Wow, somebody wants us to quit India. Wonder why. Indian calls for independence have intensified lately. Now things have come to a head with a radical Quit India movement has called for the United Kingdom to leave the country as soon as possible. British authorities were quick to react, however, and have cracked down on the movement, arresting several leaders in dawn raids on homes across India. Reports prepared by special branch indicate that many sympathizers are still at large, however, and many of the civil service have expressed fears of a more extremist elements of the movement may have resort to violence. Uh-oh. Who would want to not be part of the great British Empire? Okay, Britannia rules the waves. Very good. Battleship carrier focus, escort focus. Civil War. Still don't know that that's a good thing. We'll develop Canada. Oh good, we're here now. Support that attack. You attack those Spanish troops there. Uh-oh. You're pushing us back here. Come on. Now we have lots of air power, so let's get some more stuff down here. We already have some units here. Go 100 fighters. Another 100 fighters. Okay, that will be our air power. These guys come up here, go after enemy fighters. These guys come up here, fighters, bombers. Ground support, ground support, ground support. Yeah, well, some of the biggest propaganda uses of the stuff have been in Turkey that I've been understanding. Again, I've not been following all of it super closely, but supposedly Erdogan, or however you pronounce his name, has been showing some of the attack at rallies. Okay, so we cleaned, or the U.S. finally cleaned up Sicily. Okay, all these various Free French Tech Forces and others come to Anzio now. Reinforce that. You guys, oh, I should have moved you up before. Okay, come to Anzio as well. The rest of the motorized army. Yes, we'll take more ship building capabilities. I think getting the Italian ports. Oh, pause. More of the ASW holes. More like that. Strategic bombing. Night bombing. We're gonna go night bombing. Why close the straits when you can give basing rights to the Russian Navy? Don't know you want to give basing rights? Turkey is taking a bad path, in my opinion. I don't know what they're going to get out of being an Islamicist country. I know a lot of the people in Constantinople, Istanbul, Soviet Union declared war on Japan. How interesting. Okay. You can see Japan isn't doing well. Meaning they've been cut off here. They're not, haven't got there. We've got some more forces. Okay, we've actually closed up this pocket without me paying much attention. Probably because they didn't take a port when they invaded there. They have a port supplying this one through here. No other major Japanese advances, it looks like. Would the Soviet Union declare war against Japan? While, you know, Germany is, well, almost at the gates of Stalingrad. I mean, they're not yet at the gates of Leningrad, and of course they're rather far from Moscow at this point. I don't know. I don't know. The Russian China also red bases on the Pacific. I don't know that Turkey could go after the Suez. Both Egypt and Israel might not like that and not allow that to happen. Well, we're seeing a possible rise in terrorism in Ireland now that Brexit's happening. So, and that would more or less be Christian on Christian over that. Okay, yeah. No, come on. Okay, if you guys come up to there. Oh, goody. Okay, so we've got a bunch more forces here. Shall we? Okay, Optimus can take it, and yeah, we'll put him under. Come on. There we go. River, and I want to get this province back. Guko has capitulated out here. Well, maybe this is a good idea. Soviets coming in there, I don't know. Okay, you guys down here, come up to there. Hawker Typhoons, very good. And, do that. And we're going to come over here. And where do we have there? Oh, well, let's... Got a lot of air experience, so let's come over here and see what we can do to improve this. Range is added, nice. Engine performance, attack. Okay, that looks good. So we now have the Mark 1. Typhoon Mark 1, so we're going to put that in production. Ah, what? Can you do a naval invasion of Genoa? That may be a good idea. I think, unfortunately, I'm getting a bit bogged down here in my troops that are currently there. Like I say, that may be a good idea. So we have these and these forces here. So you come to here. You come to here. We're going to put you under Auchinleck. You under Auchinleck. So once you get there. So you guys come down to, say, here. So that would be a good move. Good move there. Thanks for, yeah, they're just putting names in slots, of course, for the aircraft. JP. And no, I'm not just talking about NATO and Turkey, but Turkey was trying to become part of the EU and westernize, and the Turkish army was trying to, it has, since Ataturk has been trying to westernize the nation. A naval invasion of Copenhagen. Well, I maybe could. I don't know if that's a good idea to do a naval invasion up there. Let's see what we're doing down here with Italy first. I know we have a lot of army in Norway. Direction of attack, go to there. Armor, you go there. Good to have the Americans up here with us. And our forces here in Cardiff now come. Come to there. I don't want to overstrain one of the places too heavily. Okay, and for the invasion force, let's get all of these guys come up here quickly. Okay, well. Should have pushed in there sooner when we had the chance. Okay, these guys. Naval invasion from here to Genoa. Right into their capital. How many days? How many days? Okay, 28 days. Increase my recruitment laws. We got 600,000. We've already got extensive conscription. Suitable service by requirement is, yeah, probably what we should do. Back up there. Well, maybe we should have some more air here. So, over here and go after enemy fighters. And over here. Over here and also after enemy fighters to make sure that we're winning the air battles. Now they've cut Italy off. I'm not liking that. They're hitting us hard. Okay, we've got some reinforcements. How many days until this gets to go? Okay, 18 more days. Is Australia? No, no, Australia is not part of Asia. It's its own continent. That's not part of Asia. That's its own continent. I mean, how, no, well, Asia's part of Europe because this is Europe and it's all one piece of land. No, we sort of divide it. The Ural Mountains, Caspian Sea, coming down through to here and here. So that's, where we divide that. this is its own Australia is its own continent. No, well, what is an island? All the Euro Asian African, because if we don't count the canal here, is all one piece of land, because that would fill back in if without man keeping this open here. The Suez would fill back in with sand. In time, I don't know whether it be 10 years or 200 years, but at some point it would fill back up. That could be defined as an island. No, Australia is a continent. So yeah, that's how we define it. It is not part of Asia. Also, culturally, the indigenous people that were there before the Europeans showed up, because I do consider Anglo-Australians now indigenous to the region, to Australia. The Aboriginals have a completely different culture, completely different genetics than what we understand to be the Asians. So they were never even culturally connected to Asia before the Europeans showed up. Not saying there wasn't a Chinese explorer fleet that didn't cruise by at some moment, at some time, but it was never culturally connected. Because mine and my ethnic group is now an indigenous group here in the United States. We are indigenous peoples now. We weren't 400 years ago. We're about 200 years older than Australia. So, but now we are indigenous to the region. Just like Mexicans, mestizos, mixed. That's what it means. Mixed. Spanish and Indian. The Indians are considered different. I mean, they live in Mexico, but they're not seen as the same ethnic groups as the Mexicans see themselves, which are a mixed people. They're indigenous. We're indigenous. So, that's how I look at that. And so, like in Canada, they like to call the Indians the First Peoples. Yeah, and that is a reasonably good name. It's not the name I generally call the Indians. I call them Indians or Native Americans, because Canada is part of the American continent. It is an American country. It is not America, but it is an American country. And so the first, as they like to call them, the First Peoples are, the Indians, but now the rest of Canadians are also indigenous to the region as a large enough ethnic group. Well, I'm saying a large enough ethnic group there. Brazilian Jews, you're going. But Brazilian Europeans, yeah, they're indigenous to Brazil now. They're not incomers. They're many generations. They're indigenous. So whether it's Black Americans are indigenous to the United States or European Americans are indigenous to the United States now. Because my understanding is the Indians that we know were not actually the first peoples here, that they are a later wave, and they can look at some of the stuff of some earlier waves of people that were here. Well, you see, the first peoples, indigenous. No, indigenous to me means people that are locally there and have been there for a time. Okay, hey, Frog Eyes. Yeah, you're right. Indigenous nations, but they're made up of people. Okay. Um. So And so, by your logic, indigenous people, so the French are not indigenous to France, you know, because they're Franks. I know they're not all Franks, but most of them are Franks. So they're not, or many of them are Franks, maybe I should say. The Franks aren't indigenous to, you know, because they were Gauls. You know, are Anglo-Saxons not indigenous to England? Well, Britons were there before the Anglo-Saxons showed up. Didn't the French language originate in France? The French language originated in Rome because it's a Latin-based language that was moved up there and then separated over time. But because they would have speak Gaulish, but then the Franks came in before Charlemagne, but Charlemagne was the big sort of uniter and that, and there was the Merovingian empire peoples before the Franks. And so, you know, hey Van Bishop, good to have you here. So, you know, what is indigenous? Like I say, there is evidence of shall we call them racial groups of people that were in the Americas. Again, I say evidence because I don't have all the details, and I don't know that we have all the details, but of an earlier wave or waves of people coming in here before what we generally think of as Native Americans. I don't know whether the Native Americans are a replacement people or a mixture of the previous people and new peoples that came in. I don't know. We do know there were several waves of them, and there's even thought that maybe there was a let me say a pre-European wave, but coming this way. You know, I don't mean like the Vikings. I mean way back. You know, before Rome was even a thing. Before, you know, this stuff, that maybe some of the earlier migrations came around this way. That there's some thought, at least to the eastern seaboard, way back. You know, well before what I should say is before history. History is the written word, not archaeology, but history. And so, what is indigenous? You know, well, maybe humans aren't indigenous here because it was Neanderthals. So there are no indigenous Europeans. They're all colonizers who pushed out the Neanderthal. See, I don't think there were any Neanderthals in the Americas. I think they are developed somewhat here. So how far back do you want to go to indigenous people? Living there for a few generations, establish dominance in that area, they become the indigenous. Exactly, JP. That's exactly my point. He said it very well for me. And like, you know, yeah, the Zulus, but the Zulus are now part of South Africa. They weren't. They pushed out earlier people. I think, again, I think the sort of Bushmen and the Hottentots were down here before what we normally think of. If you, especially I know well photos of the Bushmen. They're lighter skinned. They have different bone structures than what we think of as standard sub-Saharan Africans. I think the sub-Saharan Africans, the Bantu peoples, and some of the others, again, I'm not going to go into all the names. I can't remember them all right now, but moved down into successive waves down into South Africa. And I think there were earlier peoples there. And so, and as we've talked about before, there are different waves of migration into the Indian continent, including, I think, down here, a few million Africans that have obviously intermixed with some of the locals, but they have genetic characteristics of Africans that have come over long before Europeans ever made it to the region. You know, so this isn't a European import of peoples. This is a previous group of peoples into the Indian subcontinent. So yeah, so I I'm entirely agreeing with JP and his view, and that's why um, you know I take umbrage to some of these people, and yes, a lot of it since the 19th century is the end of the 19th century. There hasn't been a lot of new carving out movings of people. We do see some of that around Europe, like all the Sudeten Germans were moved out of Czechoslovakia at the end of World War II, and just forcibly ejected from their homes and put into whether East or West Germany after that situation. So we do see some uh, moving of peoples like that, but it sort of becomes settled. We no longer really need land to land is a finite thing, but we can grow food. We can have a lot of people in a dense area. Hello, Fire Wings. Good to have you here. Oh, I'm not saying we shouldn't remember them and respect them. And so, no, and yeah, but no, it was a natural movement of people. The mere fact that they did it on boats instead of walking to America. Humans, hey, thanks for following the channel. Humans naturally move by water. We see some of the greater movements of humanity early on by water. It is a natural way for humanity to move. Again, it's stories, but I really believe it's based in some events. We see going back to Noah. Thanks, Arnav, for hosting. The Noah's Ark story. I think it's sort of a conglomerate of displaced peoples via the sea when the Black Sea when it fills in, and or the Persian Gulf, that they've sort of done research now that when some of the ice ages melted and we had sea rise again. Ice ages come and go naturally. I just don't. I see again. I'm not buying all of this. Global warming's man caused. Not that the climate doesn't shift and change over the generations, or over the eons, but it does. So people have naturally been moving around via boats for a long time. So I'm going humanity moving around is done via boats, and just like the well, I was going to say just like some of the early people getting to Australia, we can maybe see if you lower the sea levels, but even then coming through here, there was probably maybe they could see the islands, because like this would be, because you can see the shallowness here. Some of this was probably at one time all one landmass here, but some of this might still have been the idea, like here we could sort of see a deep trench that probably took some, I can see land over there, let's float over to the other side kind of thing. So yeah, I get your points, but I'm trying to think how I should say this, because I want to be very clear. Success should not be a shameful act. People should not be ashamed of their ancestors' success. And we've defined the world at different times, in different ways, but first world, second world, third world. First world was sort of the Western world. Second world was the Soviet bloc, and the third world was the underdeveloped. Neither of the other two. There were, of course, some nations that don't quite fit into that pattern between second and third and first, but that's sort of how it was defined. So the mere fact that Western peoples and cultures have been hugely successful, a lot of it technologically, but the technology came because of culture. And again, I look at it as culture. So gamer, try and kick the Japanese out of, yeah, we're Dutch East Indies, we're going to do that. Well, they were becoming that, and they weren't Moroccans, sorry. They were Arabs that were becoming indigenous to Spain. They weren't Moroccans. The people that were down here, oh God, I'm blanking on what the peoples were. They weren't the ones that were invading Spain. It was the Arab invaders that were moving across. The people that are there. So humans are a species, not a race. Yeah, it depends on how you define things. But generally, you're right. Azads, I would agree with that, because there, and again, correlation isn't always the same thing. The Japanese culture is basically defined more or less to one racial group. It does have a subgroup of the Anu that are sort of disappearing as a culture, because of mostly because of mass media. Up here, they were earlier settled people that are different from genetically from the rest of the Japanese. So that, but the American, and there's a lot of subcultures in America. Most assuredly, but the American culture is made up of a multiracial thing. So American culture is not defined by a race. Again, I can say that there are subcultures within it, absolutely. And I'm not talking about first, second, or even maybe third generation of different incoming people. Depends on what group. So like nowadays, your Vietnamese grandparents, I'm not talking about them as being American. I'm talking about the grandchildren. So that would be the third generation, well, second or third, depending on how you define it. The second generation born here, the Vietnamese that have come in here are now very much American, no longer Vietnamese incomers. So America, being an American, and this is where the left often wants to define the thing that we of the right talk about values out of our recent past that may have been predominantly white values. We're not talking about the race, we're talking about the culture. And they want to make it about race. We want to talk about the culture. And that's how we of the right, or the conservatives, generally look at it. I'm not talking about the nutty racists that run around. You get 600 of them or something in Virginia. Yeah. They're big once every 10 years. Great, huge get together. It's like 600 people. You know how freaking, and all they didn't all make it there, but you know how freaking small that Virginia rally everybody likes to point to. That's like almost nothing, and that's like, the head of the different groups all showed up there, and all the people they could get together to show up there, and so like 600 of them, or maybe 800 of them. So majority. Well, they didn't become the majority, and I'm not even necessarily talking need to be the majority. Now, of course, Rhodesia was a mixed race society. There were lots and lots. Many don't know the white population of Rhodesia, but they were pretty damn large. The whites are not a majority in South Africa, either the Anglos or the Boers, but they are a big tribe. And if you look at in African terms, there are two white tribes. There's the the Anglo tribe, which is mainly Anglo-whites, is mainly concentrated here, and there are the Bora tribe of Africa here that are white-skinned, that have they're descended out of Europeans. So now France was trying to make these two states here in this game part of France without kicking out the locals, but importing lots of French people as well. Well, yeah, the Anu, but they were there, I think, best understanding the first torpedo. Yeah, so Rhodesia is a tragic case. And there were definitely problems with Rhodesia. I'm not going to try to, minimize that, but it was a tragic case. It could have been a glorious country, but no, the Jews are indigenous now because they're back there. They weren't there for, and it was never 100% gone either. There was a diaspora, but there was no. There were always Jews living in Judea. Well, we're going to end the episode here on this interesting conversation about indigenous peoples around the world. Thank you all for watching. Thanks for liking the videos. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on indigenous peoples around the world.